Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining me for a new episode of the Women's Eye podcast. I'm your guest host, Laura Munson, and the Woman's Eye has been a wonderful support of my work, from my memoir, This Is Not the Story You Think It Is, to my novel, Willows Grove, to my acclaimed Haven Writing Retreats out here in Montana. I love that they included me in their wonderful anthology, 20 Women Storytellers, and I'm thrilled to be a guest host on their wonderful All Things Women podcast. I love their mission, how they celebrate fascinating women who are taking charge, making a difference, and helping them create the life they really want. My guest today, Aime Card, is doing that and a whole lot more. Every single time Aime and I talk, it's a marathon conversation. And so I've asked her to be here today so that you can get a view into her mighty brain and heart. I've learned so much from her, and I hope you will too. So welcome, Aime.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to get to talk to you again.
Me too, me too. I wish we could do it for 3 hours like our phone calls. So
Wow,
here's
that's the way we normally do.
yeah, that's right. All right, so here's her bio so you can all get to know a little bit about Aime first. For the past 7 years, Aime Alley Card has been researching, interviewing, and writing about the Tennessee State Tigerbelles and those who supported them along their path. She conducted and reviewed hundreds of hours of interviews and read just as many books and articles, ranging from concurrent to retrospective. She is a nonfiction editor for Panegyris Literary Magazine and a board member for the Women's National Book Association Boston chapter, and serves on her town's cultural council supporting educational programs. So here's a peek into what her book is about. Aime, you want to hold up that book so we can see these incredible
I,
women? Look at that
yeah,
book. I love that cover. I bet you must love that cover too. It's
I
just,
do. I was so excited to see it. Yes.
I know, it's so great. Okay, the Tigerbelles, Olympic legends from Tennessee State. One hot Southern summer in 1960 at Tennessee State University, a regional college for Black students, a coach and his team of women runners called the Tigerbelles sprinted on a dirt track, dodging potholes and cow piles, preparing for a shot to run on the world stage at the Olympics in Rome. 8 women on the team made it to the final competition, and 4 of them came back home with gold medals. This is the extraordinary story of how one team changed the face of women's athletics forever, and how the world fell in love with the Tigerbelles. So that came out January 2nd, 2024 by Lions Press. And I was lucky enough to be asked for a blurb. So I thought I'd read this now for for those of you who aren't sports fans. I myself being one of them, I admit. So when she asked me to blurb this, I thought, wow, I wonder if I'm the right person. Well, I was, because here's my blurb. The Tigerbelles is not only for sports lovers, but for anyone who values triumph over adversity, untold historical stories, women supporting women, and the collective power of a team breaking the mold. Their story is heartbreaking and heartwarming in equal measure. So now let's hear from the author. Aime, tell us why you were drawn to this story.
So I grew up in Nashville, where the Tigerbelles are from. They're a track team at Tennessee State, and I always knew about the Tigerbelles. My grandfather was a track coach on a team across town, and he became friends with Coach Temple. And I just grew up knowing about them as the highest achievement in athletics, not just for women, but for everyone. And as I got older, I realized that other people didn't know about them. A lot of people know about Wilma Rudolph. She's the superstar on the team. She won 3 gold medals in 1 Olympics. But most people don't know about the whole team, the whole Tigerbelles. And I just felt like they deserve to have their story shared and other people could be inspired by them like I was.
Oh, yeah, it's such illumination. Now, for a book like this, it requires lots and lots of research. And I think that research isn't for everybody, but I think that if you take the word research out of it and replace it with curiosity and empathy, maybe radical curiosity and empathy, which is what Aime has, I know this to be true, then it's really about that. So tell me how you were able to spend all that time interviewing and and researching and being that curious and full of empathy? Was it your pleasure? Was it illuminating? I mean, tell us about the process.
Yeah, this is one of those stories that once you start digging in and uncovering little bits of it, you just want to find out more and more about each. It's a big team. There were lots of people, and they each bring their own individual stories into it. And together, they make this team that accomplished this incredible feat. And then you have to dig into what was happening at the time and talk to other people to see what their perspectives were on it. But the way that I really got started, I early on got to interview Coach Temple. He was the coach of the team. And once I talked to him, it really was, I was all in. He is a fantastic storyteller, and just the way that he believes in this group of women, you just could feel his heart. And it was just something I really knew I needed to share. I wasn't sure how it was going to happen, but I knew that it had to be done in some way. And if I could help, I would.
Yeah, I hear such a place of like wanting to share story and the power of story by listening to theirs and being the conduit, and so tell us what about some of the surprises along the way, or if you weren't surprised, I'm sure you were, but also maybe some of your favorite people to interview.
Oh, well, actually, I got to talk to some of the Tigerbelles. They've told their story so many times, but one of my favorite interviews was kind of their little brother on the team, Ralph Boston, because he is just a fantastic storyteller and just kind of a cut up, but also an incredible athlete. I would like to write a book on him next. But Ralph Boston and Coach Temple was just amazing to interview. Coach Temple's daughter, Edwina Temple, was just the way that she would tell a story and tell about how the girls were getting in trouble and make it funny was just the best possible. Everyone that I talked to really, everyone that I talked to brought something new to the table, and it was, and digging into some of the older interviews, I would just be laughing and crying in the same interview, how hard they had it, but how much fun they had along the way. And the way that they could express exactly perfectly how they were feeling, that is what led to the oral history format, because their voices, the way that they told the story, no one could tell it better than them. And so I ended up hitting on that documentary style oral history format, and that really was the best way to get myself out of the way and let them tell their own story, because that's what I saw when I was going through it, and I wanted other people to have that same experience.
Yeah, now I want you to write the memoir of what that experience was like for you, starring you as the main character. I mean, I don't know, curiosity and awe are two of my favorite things. Now I have to take a quick break from this interview and let you all know we find Aime in the middle of her book tour. She's just gotten into the Bay Area, and so her room wasn't ready, so we find
Apologize
her.
for the hotel lobby.
Yeah, so welcome to the Bay Area, everybody, to the hotel lobby. But we writers are very resourceful, so I have been in that same position. So you do it with grace. Now tell us what you learned about the power of a team. I read
So
something you wrote about that, and I just want you to give us some of those nuggets, the pearls of wisdom.
well, that is the thing that I really want people to take away from the story the most. I mean, people think, oh, it's an inspirational sports story. There are lots of individual inspirational sports stories that have been told, but there is something really special about this to me, because it is about the power of the team. And Wilma Rudolph, the superstar that I mentioned earlier, who won 3 gold medals in a single Olympics, would be the first person to tell you that she never would have gotten to where she was without her teammates bringing her along. And the Tigerbelles had a motto that they were not allowed to graduate until the people that were coming up behind them beat them. Not that they were equal to them, but they had to be better. And I just love that motto. I love that thought process of, you're not just bringing people up to your level, you're helping them to even be greater than you. It takes your ego out of it. And so it's the power of the collective, and that's something that we can all take into our lives. I mean, we're not all Olympic athletes, we're not all elite, but in that way, but we can all help each other, and we can all help the person who's doing what we're doing behind us.
Yep. I mean, that's what the Women's Eye is all about. Women supporting women, people coming together in support of one another instead of being solo acts, which so many of us think we have to be. And so the power of the team, you're so right. You can apply that to any kind of collaborative event in your life or
Mhm.
effort, or especially a solo effort that you can actually open it up and make it collaborative. So important,
Yeah.
you know, and she and I are both writers, so it's done alone, but writing is born out of community. We need to
Yes.
be, yeah,
It
I've learned that.
feels like there's so much that you do alone with writing, but there are also so many things that you need other people for. Just advice. I mean, Laura's been an amazing mentor to me. Just, I mean, how many times have I called you up panicking about this or that? And, so that's the way you're not alone. And even just to get the book published, there are 15, 20 people working behind the scenes. It's all teamwork and everything is collaborative. And the more that we can help each other, kind of comes back.
Would you say that's one of the main messages of the book, or if there's a takeaway from the
That's
book, what is it? What do you
that's
want
the one that's the one that I really hope that people get. That's not the most obvious. The other one that I love that Coach Temple made a point of when I was talking to him, I ended the conversation. I said, what else do you want people to know about the Tigerbelles? What did I not ask you? And what he said to me was the thing that he was most proud of. And he was talking about these women who were in halls of fame, have been, very, very accomplished in their entire lives. But the thing that he was most proud of with them is that all of his Olympic athletes had graduated from college. That was the primary thing for him,
to?
not how they won, not how many people went to the Olympics. And by the way, one coach had 40 women go to the Olympics, and they all graduated from college. So, I mean, the whole thing is just incredible. But I loved that what he put first and their priorities was getting their education, because he knew that was going to be the thing that changed their lives and therefore changed the lives of everyone that came after them.
That's a good coach right there. May we all have somebody like that in our lives, you know?
I know, I know. Yeah. I
So
mean,
I want,
I feel like some of his messages are still teaching me.
yeah, I'm sure they enter into your dream state. I'm
Mhm.
sure that they wake you up in the middle of the night and continue to work in you and always will.
One of my favorite ones is that I'm tired is not the time to quit. I'm tired is the time to dig in and see what you can find within yourself. I'm paraphrasing, but that was it. That I'm tired is not the time to quit is the thing that I always remember, because that's the thing when there are moments when you think this is not going to happen. What am I doing here? This is crazy. I'm on this journey, but I'm tired is not the time to quit. I'm tired is the time to figure out what else you have. Because if you believe in something, you got to make it happen.
Yeah, and there's so many different ways to be tired. I mean, obviously we need sleep, but it can be like emotional exhaustion or
Yeah.
just fear of rejection. That I'm tired can often be a foil for something else, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I'm scared.
Yes. I'm intimidated by this process. Yeah, absolutely.
All
Yeah.
those things. I love that. I also want to share before we get into some other stuff here. Well, I want to ask you a little bit about what it's been like for you to be on the road. I mean, Amy just landed, got to the hotel, and look at that smile. Tell us about being on the road. What's that
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of, I want to talk to you about this. I feel like this is something I need in one of my long conversations with Laura about. It's been kind of crazy. I mean, it's definitely been busy. It's kind of one of those things where at first I was saying yes to everything, and now I'm kind of wondering if right now I haven't said no to many things, but I'm wondering if I do need to start, I don't know, being a little bit more selective. But really, the point is, I keep having to remind myself what am I doing here. The point is to get this message out, and I'm a conduit to this message somehow. And the more people that I talk to, the more people hear about their story, and that is the point of all of this. And so when I'm running around and trying not to mess Laura up with her podcast, and all the different things, all the different balls in the air, and then just trying to make sure things are still, because I'm a mom, I'm trying to make things run smoothly at home, and I'm trying to you know balance all different things. It's just, it's a little crazy, but it's been fun, and it's been wonderful to meet all kinds of people, and it's been wonderful to find like things like the Women's Eye, about find organizations that are really doing good work out there and supporting women and their stories. And that is the thing that knits all anyone. I'm here to talk to a company, and they have a employees of color group and a women in science group, and together they're having the first event together to talk about this story. And that is amazing to me, that they're taking time out of their work day, they're doing some really important work in the world, but they're just taking time to refresh themselves and think about their purpose. And so all of those kinds of events make it worth it, and
Well,
all the people you meet on the way.
yeah, and like what a living example of the message that they taught you, right? Like
Yeah.
we can be exhausted, or we can be on the road, a different city every day, but like as you said, you're the conduit of this important message that is personal for you from childhood, and you've learned so much from hearing all their stories, and now you're out spreading the word, whether or not, the kids are like, "Mom, come home," or it's like the flight's delayed, whatever, but that's the beauty of being being the author of a book that's meant to get a story out. So I also want to know about your first book, because Amy is the author of two books, and the first one is called the first one, second, yeah, the first one's called "And Beneath It All Was Love," and I'll read um, a little bit about it, which recounts Amy's journey through cancer treatment and into recovery at a young age. So, Amy, you endured an aggressive treatment, which included debilitating chemotherapy, two surgeries. I don't need to remind you of this, but I think it's important for our listeners to know: two surgeries and radiation therapy. In your words, "I had to almost die to give myself the best chance to live." I'm going to read it again. "I had to almost die to give myself the best chance to live." Those are powerful words. So talk to us about what the process of writing that book was like for you, because a lot of people who go through difficult times want to write about it, but it's often too charged for them. A lot of them come on my Haven Writing Retreat, and they want to write about a hard time in their life, but it often is too hard for them, and they'll stop. And that's when they come to Haven to hopefully get back into the flow of it and back to why they're writing it in the first place. So was it hard for you to relive it? Was it cathartic? I would imagine it's a little bit of both. So talk to us about that.
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit of both. I think that writing for me has always been a go-to for healing and processing. That was one of the things that I started doing when I was young, is journaling and getting your feelings out on paper. And so that's kind of how that project started, was me just writing what I was feeling, little things, little scenes. And I was also on a lot of drugs from the chemo, and I would forget things. And so that was another thing where I wanted to write everything down. I wanted to capture my kids at the time when I was diagnosed were 8 and 11. And so those were really tough ages, because they're old enough to really know what's going on in a way. And they're also young, so young. We're seeing me go through changes, losing my hair, looking very ill. I lost a ton of weight. I was very, very thin. And that looked strange to them. They were seeing their mom go through these changes. And so it was processing all of these experiences in a way for me. And then it kind of grew to be something that was, I thought maybe I could knit it together. And the whole thing about putting it out there was that I really didn't want to talk to people about what I was going through at the time. My friends would ask me how I was doing, and I would always tell them I was fine. I'm fine, but I wasn't fine at all. Behind the scenes, I was absolutely not fine. And then I thought, okay, well, here's something that I can write down and I can just give you, and you can read it. And this will tell you what I went through, and then you'll know. And then I thought somebody else could be going through it, and they could resonate. They could feel like my story said something about their story, and they could just give it to their friend and say, you want to know something about what it's like? Just read this. So I don't have to tell you all and if you want to know what your friend is going through without having to really pester her and see like, what can I do for you? Then maybe read it and maybe see this is something like what she may be experiencing. How can I help her? Like, how can I reach, like, what's going to work and what's not going to work? And it's, individual, every case is different. But that was the point of putting it out there as opposed to being just for me. But I didn't go through the traditional publishing journey. I self published it and then I put it on the shelf. And that speaks to the part about it being really hard because now every now and then I'll have to do another event for it. I'll speak to a group and it's hard to read through those passages again because that, with the Tigerbelles, I get to play some of the interviews that I have with Coach Temple and some of the Tigerbelles. They're telling their own story, but this one is definitely mine. I'm the one who's going to have to read it. And it's definitely hard going through. And so it's a really hard thing to tell your own story. But I think in a way, if you feel like it can help one other person, it's worth it that way. If you're just helping one more person.
It's so true. And people say that, but it's really true when you've actually written a book and you get, a question and somebody's crying as they ask it, or they come up to you when you're signing their book, or you get a letter from them, from somebody who's a stranger who has told you point blank that your book helped them. It really does make it all worthwhile. And I love the piece that you were tired of having to talk about it, so you just wrote it. I mean, that's the sign of a true writer. But I mean, anyone out there who has a story to tell, they might not feel like it's for everybody's eyes, but I suspect that just writing it out was a good experience for you to be able to tell your story without having to have a witness. And then afterwards to say, here. And that here has reached strangers, not just loved ones. And that to me is what I hope any of you out there think about. If you've got a story to tell and you want to write it down and you have all the refusals that we all have in our minds. I don't know if you heard these in yours, but I certainly heard them in mine when I wrote my memoir. Who do I think I am? Somebody did it better than I ever could. My story is just a little story, even though it's big to me. And of letters after my name. At that point, I wasn't well known at all, and you weren't well known either, probably at that time. And so, but all those things are just fear speaking.
Yeah.
That's all memoir requires, is for us to tell the truth. And frankly, as a writing teacher, I feel that that's the same with fiction, because I think fiction is distilled reality. But I'm just so glad that you did it, because it gives other people permission. Not only will the book help them, but it gives other people permission to tell their story. So here we are. Anybody out there who wants to write a memoir, think about, or just share their story, maybe in a personal essay, have the courage to do it, and write past the fear of exposure, because it might just help you and other people in so doing. Okay, so I keep waiting for like a high school marching band conference to walk right by you. This is great.
So sorry about that. Thank you so much for being patient.
It's not your fault. It's actually fun. It's really fun. I'm sitting here in Montana.
It's a happening place here in the East Bay.
The glamorous life of a writer, everybody, the glamorous life of a writer. So I think that I want to just add one more thing in here, because you do so much important work, and you work with you're an editor at a wonderful literary magazine that I want our listeners to know about, called Pangyris. And I was lucky enough to just get a little piece published in it. I hadn't heard of it through Aime. Well, I'm getting some nice feedback from it, but I want to know what it's like. So we're talking about sharing stories, and Aime is a nonfiction editor, which means that she would potentially consider something that was a personal essay about something that's been through. So if we have the courage to write about ourselves and our lives, what's some advice you could give us? What are some of the common mistakes that you see writers making with the personal essay?
Well, one of the things with essay that's a little bit tricky is because you think it's shorter form than like a full-on memoir, you get a short period of time. You can't start with a ton of unnecessary details, but you still have to do the beginning, middle, and end of a story. So it's not just like a little snapshot. A lot of people will try to take like a piece of a longer thing that they wrote, but it really needs to have its own. Somebody's going to read only that, and it needs to kind of make sense on its own. But and it needs to speak to you. If it speaks to you, then if you're telling something that's true from your heart in a way that is gonna get a visceral reaction from me, that's what I love. And the things that I look at are, I'm the generations editor, so I do personal essay about family. And that's really rich territory. So, you know, and it doesn't have to be your birth family. It can be chosen family. It can be any kind of family. But it's, it's, I think that's one of the biggest things I think that people make mistakes. But generally, the writing that we get is good. It's just, you know, maybe it didn't fit with what we were trying to do at the time, or, you know, there was just something that didn't strike with us just right. But it's not necessarily the quality of the writing that's ever really going to be a problem. Plus, if you write to me and you give me a heads up, ask me, you know, you tell me that you heard about me through Laura or something like that. Send me a note, and I will always give you feedback. I'll tell you, give you some, what if it didn't work for us. I'll tell you what was great about it, what you need to keep working on, you know, what you could like dig deeper on, all of those little
And
tidbits.
that is so uncommon, everybody. That is uncommon. Amy is a true writer's writer and a true editor's editor, writer's editor. And
I
that's
always want people to know when it was close, especially when I take it to the editorial board and we're kind of like, oh, it was almost there, and I want to just like write them back, like it was so close. You know, work on it a little bit more and send it back to us.
yeah, no one does this. No one does that. I've been at this since 1988. This, you get a form letter if you get anything at all. This does not meet our needs at this time. Amy is just, you're the real deal. That's why I wanted to have you on. I'm so glad I got to share your brilliance and your honesty, and you're just a pure human being. That's like the only kind of person I really want to be around. It's just a pure human being. And I'm really glad that your two books are out in the world. Good luck on that book tour out there and speaking to the company. And I hope that they get your room ready for you soon. I remember the first time I learned about the Women's Eye, I was speaking in LA at the More Magazine's Women's Reinvention Convention. And Stacy came up to me and, you know, she was like, can I interview you? You know, it was on, and well, no, it was pre-booked, but you know, it's the same kind of thing, people coming and going. And then there's this beautiful woman who's like all professional with the microphone. And I was not at all as graceful as you have been in our time together. So Amy, how can we find out more about you? I know you have a Substack
I do
and
have a Substack. I'm not super regular about it right now, but it's about every month or month and a half or so. But I've got a website. Amy is AIME card CARD.com, and I'm on all the social media platforms. But yeah, I'm mostly doing the Pantyris work and pounding the pavement for this one, and hoping that I can get to another project at some point soon.
well, we hope so too. Thank you so much for being with us today, Amy. You can learn more about Amy and her book, The Tigerbelles, by going to thewomenseye.com. There you'll also find the Women's Eye books, 20 Women Changemakers, 20 Women Storytellers, over at womenstorytellers.com. And shop wherever you buy books and at changemakersbook.com. And of course, to see what else Amy is up to, you can go over to her website, which she just said, aimecard.com. Thanks again, Amy. And to all of you for tuning into the Women's Eye podcast, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe. I'm Laura Munson. Remember, it's the world as we see it.